Welcome to this first tutorial of the basics of DSL's Assets4Feed, formerly called AssetMaster. Assets4Feed is a system for storing information on equipment in your factory, logging running information, and planning maintenance schedules. You either run it from a shortcut on your desktop, or if you have a DSL autopilot for feed system, menu, maintenance, Assets4Feed, and there are three versions here you can run: manager, operator or supervisor, depending on your level. We'll run the system as manager now to give us access to everything. To start off, it's important to think about different areas of the factory or groups of items. So if we go to configuration groups, I've entered here a number of different groups of items or areas. You can enter your own. Next we start entering details about different items of equipment. I already have lots of items in here, but if you have an autopilot for feed system, you can import them directly from there. So this is how you do it: menu, configure, item, definition. So if you select an item like conveyor C25, click on general, and down the bottom here link to Assets4Feed, and as long as that is checked, you can import the item directly into Assets4Feed. Then in Assets4Feed, configuration, import from autopilot, and here are all the items which are not yet imported into Assets4Feed. First of all, import into a particular group, let's say the intake, and we've got a whole pile of items here. And if we don't want to import any items, use the Shift and the Control button to select some items to remove from the list, and then you can press Import to import the rest of the items. Going back to our equipment and looking at an example, in this case a fan, the top third of the form is information for you to enter about that information, about that item. For example, the supplier. You can have alternate suppliers, costs, general information here, and in particular the group where it is. If you have an autopilot for feed system, then here is the item ident, which it automatically gets information from, and the information it gets is the number of times the item has been started, running hours, the number of times it's failed, and the number of times that the operator has overridden it. It imports the data into 4 separate periods: 1, 2, 3, 4. The first period is used for maintenance, and therefore don't zero this. But the other periods, 2, 3 and 4, you can use them for whatever you want, and you can zero those at will. So you might want to use period 2 for monthly, period 3 for annual, and period 4 for the total life of the item. It also calculates the average per day of those 4 items which it imports. If you want to look at something like a digital level probe or a push button, you can actually generate an item and put the input number here from the PLC. Now let's look at subassemblies. If we go to Equipment, Subassemblies, we have here a number of subassemblies. Now subassemblies are those things that are replaceable within a main item. So here we have a motor. You can put the suppliers in here, the costs, any comments, and it'll also log the number you have in stores and a store's location if you want. So going back to the item, if you look at here, these are all these available sub-items, sub-assemblies, and you can select one and add it into the equipment, and as you press the add button it adds the number on here. Don't forget to press save when you do any change to the item. Going back a bit, we also can define the suppliers. Here I've got some example suppliers. For instance, you can put the name and address in, contact details, any other information. Whilst we're here, whenever you want to, or at least on a regular basis, you should back up the data. So if you go to File, Backup, confirm that you want to do the backup, press OK, and it only takes a few seconds. So let's look at maintenance codes and maintenance schedules. I've entered a few maintenance codes in here. So for example, monthly lubrication, the code is lube M, every so many days, and you can have running hours, starts, or just one-off maintenance items. So in this particular case it's every 30 days, lubrication monthly. Another one might be the contactor, every so many days, in this case 140 days. So going back to our equipment and looking at our fan, we've got one here, a monthly lubrication, lube check. It says when it was last done and when it's due next. We can enter a new maintenance here, contactor. Now for a one-off item, it actually asks you when it was last done or when this check needs to be done again. So you could say, well, it was last done on the 1st of February, click OK, and it'll automatically calculate when it's due next. If you press on the Done button, you can put in information that you've actually done this item. So you can say, okay, it took so long to do, the downtime or so on, and you can put any other information you want here and save it. And of course there's maintenance history there. You could look back over the item to see what was done to it. If you go to File, Print Report, there are a whole pile of reports here, but here's a useful one, maintenance schedule for the next month. You click on that, open, and it shows you here all the items which have to be done for next month. If you want to look at what has been done, maintenance completed is an example. In this particular case it looks for a date range. So if we say from the 4th to the 10th, click on OK, and this shows you all the maintenance items which have been completed in that period of time. There's lots more part of the system, including other reports and including work orders, but for the moment that's an introduction to Assets4Feed.